thank you for joining me. We're here today to talk a little bit more about what makes a livable city or designing livable cities. Margot, straight to you. How do you make a city livable?
Yeah, well, I think livable city design is so important. And when we're thinking about livable city design, we're often thinking about walkable communities. We're thinking about a healthy land use mix. And we're also kind of thinking about connectivity and integration. One of the most important parts about integration is making sure, for example, people don't have to hop into their car to get a pint of milk, because if that happens, we know we haven't done our jobs right as master planners. But I think one of the important points I want to make is that good design isn't the only thing that's necessary for sustainable development. We're also really concerned about understanding what a city really needs. So we have to be thinking about the real estate market, and we have to be thinking about the environment, as well as socioeconomic aspects that feed into that. So livable city design isn't just about a physical master plan, it's actually about thinking about all of these other things put together. And if we do this right, we're actually building cities in a way where the development will be successful over a longer period of time.
Okay, so not just the physical and built environment. Gary, would you add anything?
Yeah, I absolutely would echo her points. I think specifically it's about the people in the communities. And you have to think about the differences amongst people just through the course of a life. And for a city to be livable, then you should be able to think of someone from birth through the end of life, what their experience is through their environment. So the environment should not only provide opportunity for them in terms of how they live, opportunities to work, socioeconomic, self-improvement, educational, those sorts of issues, which again then reflects in sort of land use, and a tightness in terms of the experience of a person. I think walking, cycling, those are all very good tests. But obviously, cities function at a much larger scale sometimes as well. So you have to look at infrastructure that supports that. So I think those things are important. Then you have to really maximize the experience for individuals and plan for growth of people and communities. They have to have the ability to flex and be responsive over time.
Jamie, you're nodding at the end.
Yeah, flex is absolutely critical given the long-term nature of these projects. I think that the debate's pretty interesting if you frame it in the context of the housing crisis and the simple fact that there is such an emphasis on numbers at the moment and making sure homes are built to meet needs. If you just focus on the numbers, you risk compromising the issues we've spoken about, the key drivers being having places that people want to live in. And we had an earlier episode, I think, with Gary on placemaking, and a lot of those principles resonate in this discussion. I think it's absolutely critical that the government and the wider development industry doesn't lose focus of those additional factors which need to be incorporated in new cities.
Gary, thinking about somewhere like London or other intensely developed cities already, what are some of the issues that come with kind of large-scale developments within these intensely developed contexts?
Well, I think we've touched on it in part, the focus on targets, if we focus too much on those, the delay in terms of investment, in terms of infrastructure, the sort of disruption that brings, not only to the physical city, but to people's lives in terms of ongoing construction. People have to negotiate these things. Although I think a bit of chaos is good and a bit of challenge in environments are good, but I think they present a complexity that as planners, people setting out master plans, we have to anticipate that. We often think about construction impacts, for example, as temporary. Well, they can be temporary for 20 years for some communities or longer. Yeah. So it does have an impact, and we have to plan for that and how we can give people a respite.
Yeah. Margot, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the critical factors for me is actually getting the design teams to work together from the very beginning. As I think particularly in strategic scale master planning, where you're looking at a master plan that might take 20 years to develop, it's actually really critical to get the right mix of people talking to each other in a workshop-like environment from the very beginning. And I think in some cases that might seem like a luxury to bring a multidisciplinary team together all in the same room, rolling up sleeves and pitching into a design process. But actually, it ends up saving us so much time and so much money because we're able to solve problems in real time. And we actually end up kind of creating this arena for innovation, because if we have all sorts of different disciplines pitching in together, people come up with ideas that they wouldn't have otherwise. So, good design doesn't happen in a silo. It's got to be an integrated process. And that can actually really help keep things focused for the duration of a long-term development project.
Okay, so this multidisciplinary working together is obviously essential to the end success of these projects. How can we work more effectively together? Do you have any thoughts for it from sort of more peripheral perspective, perhaps?
Collaboration is obviously the key, and that works on both the private side and the public side. And Margot, it was interesting to hear you say getting designers and planners together and doing it early. Obviously that works on both sides. You need to have local authorities that are engaged in that process as well, and not having a design officer sitting somewhere in a different room to the planner and coming up with different ideas. The key is doing it, working alongside each other to create solutions. And that goes back to flexibility as well, and making sure that from the very beginning you build in sufficient flexibility in design and overall master planning to produce a project that works long term and is actually sustainable.
Okay. Gary, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is about collaboration, and I think it's absolutely critical that it's early, that there's engagement amongst the various disciplines involved, but we also have to engage with the public and the people, and I think we're challenged to find better ways to do that. And I think there's been examples of charrettes, co-design, all of those sort of very best practice approaches that we have to, again, continue to exploit, because it's often easy to forget, wow, there is a community and they have thoughts, and they're very well, at this stage, particularly in a place like London, very well versed in kind of the issues and the challenges and the planning responses that they expect. So I think it is about that engagement, it is about collaboration, and it is about giving that ability to think long-term in a flexible way.
Thank you.